So the way it turns out, my timing couldn't have been better. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who lives down in Calgary, he runs a YouTube channel as well called HQ BMW. He's also a gentleman that we've been on some rallies with. Awesome guy. He recently purchased an M3, and unfortunately, he was very frustrated when a recent rally that he was on ended up resulting in a cracked windshield. So he was looking around for somebody who can do crack repairs, not just chip repairs, but somebody who can actually deal with a proper crack so it doesn't spread and get larger, of course, and ultimately destroying a windshield and costing thousands of dollars to repair. He did a video recently about that very thing. He talked to a guy in Edmonton here, but then he as well ended up dealing with somebody in Calgary to get his particular windshield fixed. However, after speaking briefly with Jeff, he put me onto a gentleman by the name of Zack, who runs a shop here in Edmonton called Dynamo Windshield Repair. And actually, it's a mobile service, so he can actually come to your house and deal with a car that maybe doesn't have insurance, maybe it's a classic, maybe you don't trust taking to a conventional repair shop. He could do it remotely, can come right to your home and repair that chip or that cracked windshield for a very affordable price. So since I had two cars now that had broken windshields, the M5 and as well as the Jag, I thought, hey, let's give Zack a call and see if he can come over and fix up my windshields. At the very least, to minimize the way these windshield cracks can spread, because we know how that can happen. You put on your heat one day and all of a sudden, it goes just like that. But let's see what Zack can do. I'm expecting him any minute, and he's gonna start prepping the two cars and see if he can get these two fixed up for me. So before we get to that, be sure to check in the comment section below. Of course, you'll see Zack's contact information. If you're in the Edmonton area and you're interested in getting your windshield fixed up because of a chip or a crack or something like that, give Zack a call. He can help you. He can either get you set up or figure out what needs to be done with your windshield. As well, be sure to check out Jeff's YouTube channel down in the description as well. You're going to love his channel. Lots of great BMW content there. So firstly, let's look at the Jaguar's crack before, and let's watch Zack do his magic on the Jag. Now let's see what he can do for the M5. And that turned out amazing. So I'm very, very happy with what happened with the M5. Obviously, it filled it in. He got rid of 80% of the actual crack in terms of what you see, and it actually eliminated its spreading. So that's the big key here, is so you don't get that crack extending to the side or branching out. That's really what you're trying to reduce or eliminate, is its chance of spreading. I mean, once the damage is done, it's done, but you're able to fill it in, remove the air from the crack, and then, of course, that results in a system that's a lot more stable and a lot less likely to spread. So then we talk about the Jag over here. Love this car, but unfortunately, I don't love the costs associated with simple things like windshields. As we spoke about some of the costs of doing maintenance on some of these cars. As you know, the crack went down, it went over, and so that one was questionable whether we could fix as well. But he was able to do it. When Zack had a look at it, see, the problem with not fixing that, you're gonna have to change the windshield. But if you change a windshield, you're about $2,000 for the glass, you're about another $600 for them to set up all the sensors. Because again, these modern day cars and all the electronics and the sensors, they're looking for lane departure and all the other systems that protect you and the passengers from harm. But unfortunately, all that electronics needs to be recalibrated. And so that's where some of the costs come in, unfortunately. It's not just the glass and the install, it's recalibration of some of the electronics within that costs the money as well. Not only that, let's face it, when you're looking at a car like this, the less you have somebody sticking that knife in there, and you know, when they take a windshield out, they jam that tool in there and they pry it and they they pry it out and they jam and they move the tool along. But what do you think the risk is to this panel? Well, this panel here is worth about $7,000. So when they're cutting that, there's a chance of nicking this glass panel. And if you nick this glass panel, maybe you don't notice it that day, maybe not a week later, maybe a month later, all of a sudden you get a crack. Now that's a huge expense. Not only that, now unfortunately every time you take a windshield out, even if you're careful with the roof line, there's a chance on ruining that seal. Now you can see some of the seals along here, but there's also adhesive that holds everything in. Of course you have all those seals that run along there as well. That's also potential for ruining. So the reality is, every time you remove a windshield, doesn't matter from a Jag or a BMW or even a Lamborghini, whatever, there's a risk on the seals getting destroyed or collateral damage to the bodywork or other panels. So the less time you muck around with that, the less chance of you having other issues with the cars. And so that's a big deal to me. So it's not just the cost. Now one would say, yeah, you can use insurance and the insurance company can fix that up for you as well. But again, as I say, insurance, you claim it today, and tomorrow it comes back to you and your insurance premiums start climbing because you've made a claim. So you're trying to avoid that as much as possible. So again, I can't help explain enough. I'm very, very happy. I couldn't be more happy that I was able to reduce the amount of continuing cracking on these windshields, and hopefully I can get another 3-4 years before I actually have to do a full windshield replacement, because by then anyway, you have all that little pockmark from all the other little minor stones all over the glass that you'll just want to get rid of a windshield anyway eventually. But if I can avoid doing a windshield every year or every 2 years, this is an awesome way for minimal cost to actually keep your original windshield and glass intact. So let's take a look at the two cars and see how they look now that the work has been actually completed. Let's look at the BMW first. So as we look here on the M5 windshield, you can barely see a very hint of where it was. And that's really what all we're trying to do, is minimize the amount of impact that it shows and the amount of glare that you see. And of course, it can become blinding if you have too much of a crack, but the majority of the crack is actually hidden. Not only that, the big thing is so that it doesn't spread, because the way they apply the resin, they drill a small hole just at the very end of the crack, feed the resin back, and it secures, removes the air, and of course secures that crack and it doesn't spread any further. So let's look at the Jag now. We'll move over here and take a look around. And so we look over here, and of course you could barely see it. Very negligible crack there. That's where it was. You can almost not see it at all. It's knocked it down to about 30% of the visible crack or line that you had before. Most of it's gone now. And that's a thing of beauty. Now maybe I can make this windshield last 3-4 years. Maybe I can make it last for the time that I own this car. Maybe I only have to do one windshield. That saves thousands of dollars. Insurance companies will charge you up to shoot if you're constantly claiming glass. Even if you have glass coverage, they're going to get it back some way or another. Insurance companies never lose. So again, the key here being minimize the amount you actually see it, and of course, even more so, reduce the chance of it spreading, because you don't want that to spread and get bigger. So they've done a phenomenal job, and I couldn't be happier with the end result on the two cars. So thanks a lot, everybody, for joining today. I really do appreciate it. Today's video really was to define the fact that you can drive really cool cars, fast cars, fun cars, because life is too short to drive boring cars. But you can do it and do it affordably. There's places where you can afford to be frugal. Just because you spend $8,000 on a windshield or $3,000 on a windshield doesn't make you smarter or better. It just means you spent more money on your windshield. So if there's ways to prolong the life of some of these parts, and I don't mean delaying your oil changes. I mean, there's fundamental maintenance that has to happen. That's key to all of this. But things like this, why not extend the life of some of that? It just means you can save some of that cash for more fun things, whether it's a set of sports springs or maybe a supercharger pulley or possibly new rims, whatever. Spend the money in places that are fun to spend it on. Of course, do your oil services and all your maintenance. You never want to cut corners there on these types of cars. It'll bite you. But some of these things, why spend the money if you don't need to? Prolong that. Like I said, I was proof in the pudding that you can actually minimize the spend on a windshield and hopefully get another few years out of it instead of having to replace it every 2-3 years. Because after all, we live in Alberta and glass just doesn't seem to last more than a year or two, and you're constantly replacing them. After all, look at this car. That's an example of what we get in Alberta right here. Thanks a lot, everybody. I hope you enjoyed, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop me a line below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on the end results. Please be sure to give those two gentlemen a look, and I can't wait to talk to you guys in the next video. See you then. Bye-bye.